I should have known something was wrong when my husband kissed me goodbye that morning like he was apologizing for something he hadn't done yet. "Happy anniversary, beautiful," Mark whispered against my forehead, his lips lingering a moment longer than usual. His phone buzzed against the kitchen counter. Once, twice, 3 times, but he didn't reach for it. That should have been my first clue. Instead, I smiled and pulled him closer, breathing in the familiar scent of his cologne mixed with coffee. 10 years, I murmured. "Can you believe it? 10 incredible years," he said, but there was something in his voice, a tightness I couldn't place. His phone buzzed again. This time, his eyes flickered toward it before snapping back to mine. "I love you, Emma." The way he said it felt like a promise and a plea all at once. After he left for work, I stood in our kitchen, still in my pajamas, watching his car disappear down our tree-lined street. The morning sun filtered through the curtains, casting warm patterns across the countertop where his coffee mug sat half empty, abandoned in his rush to leave. Something cold settled in my stomach, a whisper of intuition I tried to push away. Today was supposed to be perfect. I'd been planning our 10th anniversary celebration for weeks, every detail chosen with the kind of care that comes from a decade of knowing someone's soul. The reservation at our first date restaurant, the soft blue dress hanging in our closet, the one that made Mark's eyes light up every time I wore it, the small traditions we'd built together, sacred moments carved out from the chaos of everyday life. I'm Emma, a woman who has always believed in the magic of shared moments and the strength that comes from years spent side by side. But as I stood there in the quiet kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of our hurried morning routine, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to shatter the carefully constructed perfection of this day. His phone had buzzed 7 times during breakfast. 7 times he'd ignored it for me. Mark never ignored his phone. I had spent the past few weeks meticulously planning how to mark this occasion. Mark and I weren't the type to throw grand parties or lavish events. Instead, our celebrations were intimate, filled with the small rituals that made our bond unique. I had booked a cozy table at our favorite restaurant, the one where we had our first date, tucked away in a corner that felt like a secret haven. The memory of that first evening flooded back. Mark nervously adjusting his tie, the way his eyes lit up when I laughed at his terrible joke about the wine menu. I imagined us sitting close tonight, hands entwined, sharing stories and dreams as the candlelight flickered between us. The thought of that evening wrapped me in a warm anticipation that made my heart flutter. Mark had always been my anchor, a steady presence in a world that often felt chaotic. He wasn't just my husband but my best friend, the person who knew the contours of my soul. Over the years we had built a life rich with shared experiences, a home filled with laughter, and the occasional heated debate about whose turn it was to take out the trash, a garden blooming with memories, and a love that had weathered storms. I treasured the quiet moments we carved out amid busy days. Those pockets of time where it was just the two of us, connected in ways words couldn't always capture. This anniversary felt different, though. It wasn't just another date on the calendar. It was a celebration of a decade of companionship. 10 years. How had we gotten here so quickly? I thought about all we had learned, the ways we had shaped each other's lives, and the promises we continued to keep. The idea of marking this milestone filled me with a profound gratitude, and I wanted to honor it with everything I had. I had even picked out a dress, soft blue silk that made me feel radiant and alive, a reflection of the joy I carried inside. Mark had always said blue brought out my eyes, though he'd probably forgotten he'd ever mentioned it. As the day unfolded, I moved through my routine with a lightness that surprised me. I tidied the house, arranged fresh flowers on the dining table, and prepared my heart for the evening ahead. Every detail mattered. Every choice was a thread weaving the tapestry of our shared celebration. I thought about the moments we would relive, the first time we met at Sarah's housewarming party, when he'd rescued me from a conversation about cryptocurrency that was putting me to sleep, the laughter that had filled our wedding day when his nephew had accidentally stepped on my train, the quiet support during difficult times, like when my mother was sick and Mark would bring me tea without being asked. It all felt so precious, like a secret treasure that belonged only to us. I sent Mark a gentle message that morning, a simple note saying how much I looked forward to our night together. His quick reply, "Can't wait to celebrate with my favorite person, Red Heart," made my smile deepen. It was a small exchange, but it set the tone for the day, a reminder that no matter what happened around us, We shared a bond that held firm. I could almost hear his voice in my mind, warm and steady, promising that tonight would be ours. Later, as I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the delicate earrings Mark had given me on our first anniversary, a flutter of nerves danced in my stomach. Was it possible to capture the essence of 10 years in a single evening? Could we bottle the warmth of a decade and savor it in a few hours? I hope so. I wanted tonight to be more than a date. I wanted it to be a reaffirmation of all we had built. The laughter, the tears, the quiet strength of our love. My reflection smiled back at me, but behind the excitement, that strange unease lingered like a shadow I couldn't shake. Mark and I had always cherished traditions, no matter how small. Our anniversary was a sacred time, a day we reserved just for each other amid the demands of life. Over the years, these celebrations had become a touchstone, a way to pause and remember why we had chosen each other. Tonight, I planned for us to revisit those memories, to create new ones that would carry us forward. I pictured us walking hand in hand beneath the city lights, sharing quiet conversations that felt like a dance only we understood. As the afternoon sun dipped lower, I found myself replaying moments from our life. Our wedding vows, whispered promises made under a summer sky, the way Mark's eyes always found mine when words failed. But I also remembered the harder moments. The miscarriage 3 years ago that had left us both raw and searching. The promotion Mark had turned down because it would have meant constant travel. The quiet Sunday mornings when we'd learned to be comfortable in silence together. The anticipation of tonight filled me with a tender excitement, a hope that this evening would be a perfect reflection of our journey. All of it, the beautiful and the broken. I wanted to show him how deeply I appreciated the man he was, how grateful I was for every shared sunrise and every quiet night. While I prepared, I thought about the years ahead, the future we still had to explore. Celebrating this anniversary was not just about looking back, but also about embracing what was yet to come. I imagined us growing old together, still holding hands, still finding joy in the simple act of being near. This day was a bridge between past and future, a moment suspended in time where love was the only thing that mattered. I could almost hear the familiar sound of Mark's footsteps on the stairs, the way his presence filled our home with comfort and light. My heart leapt at the thought of seeing him, of sharing this special day side by side. The plans I had made were ready, the evening set to unfold like a beautiful story written just for us. And yet, beneath the surface of my excitement, a quiet yearning lingered, a desire for our celebration to be everything I had dreamed. What was that nagging feeling? Why couldn't I shake the sense that something was about to change? As the clock edged closer to evening, I took a deep breath, steadying myself for the moments ahead. I dressed with care, each movement deliberate, as if preparing for a sacred ritual. The soft fabric of my dress grazed my skin, a gentle reminder of the love I carried within me. I glanced around the room one last time, taking in the fresh flowers, the flickering candles, the faint scent of lavender that marked this day as different. I was ready to celebrate Mark, to honor the life we had built, to wrap ourselves in the warmth of a love that had endured. This anniversary was a milestone, a marker of time and commitment, and I held it close to my heart. The night awaited us, filled with promise and possibility. And as I stood there, poised on the edge of what was to come, I felt a quiet joy blossoming inside me. A hope that this day would be everything we had ever wanted and more. But life, I was about to learn, rarely follows our scripts. Just as I was smoothing the fabric of my dress, a sudden buzz from my phone interrupted the quiet hum of anticipation filling the room. The screen lit up with Mark's name, and I felt my heart skip, imagining he was calling to share the excitement of our anniversary evening. But something in the way the phone buzzed, urgent, insistent, made my stomach tighten. "Emma, I need to tell you something," Mark said the moment I answered. And immediately I sensed the weight behind his words. His voice was tight, strained in a way I hadn't heard since his father's heart attack 2 years ago. "A business opportunity just came up, something I can't pass on. I have to leave tonight on a last-minute trip. I'm so sorry. I know it's our anniversary, and I hate that this is happening." The words hit me like cold water. I stood frozen, the cup of tea slipping from my fingers and shattering softly on the floor. The sound seemed so loud in the sudden stillness, porcelain fragments scattering like pieces of my carefully constructed day. It was as if time itself had paused, and all the dreams I'd woven for the evening unraveled in an instant. Mark's voice continued, but it felt distant, like an echo in a space that was suddenly empty. "Emma? Are you there?" His voice cut through my shock. "I'm here," I whispered, staring at the broken cup. "How fitting. A business trip? Tonight. The Morrison deal. You know, the one I've been working on for months? They called an emergency meeting. If I don't go, we lose everything. I tried to find another way, I really did, but you're going." The words came out flat, matter of fact, though inside I was reeling. Shock knotted in my stomach. A last-minute business trip? Tonight? The very night we had planned to celebrate 10 years of love and partnership? I tried to steady my breath, to find the words to say something that might make this all less real. But the truth was I was stunned. Disbelief mingled with a deep, aching disappointment that settled heavily over me like a blanket I couldn't throw off. "I know how this looks," Mark continued, his voice thick with something between guilt and frustration. "But this could change everything for us. The promotion, the security we've been talking about, it's all riding on this." Mark's words hung between us, fragile and urgent. I wanted to protest, to beg him to stay, to remind him that some things, our anniversary, our marriage, were worth more than any deal or deadline. But instead I found myself nodding, swallowing the lump in my throat. "I understand," I whispered, even though a part of me felt anything but understanding. He apologized again, his voice breaking slightly. "I promise we'll make it up, Emma. I'll call you as soon as I can. Please don't be upset." But how could I not be? How could I not feel the sting of absence on a day I had imagined so vividly? How could I not wonder if this was what the rest of our marriage would look like, me waiting in blue silk while life pulled him away? After we hung up, I was left standing amidst the fragments of my carefully laid plans. The broken teacup at my feet was a small symbol of the larger fracture that had just opened between us. I felt a swirl of conflicting emotions, support for his career, which I had always championed, and a hurt that cut deeper than I expected. This wasn't just a business trip. It was a sudden, unexpected rupture in the fabric of our shared life. For a moment I allowed myself to feel the full weight of it. The disappointment, the loneliness, the anger I was afraid to admit. Then I knelt down and began picking up the pieces of porcelain, each shard a small reminder that beautiful things could break, but they could also be mended. In that moment I thought about all the sacrifices we had made over the years. Mark's career had often demanded long hours, missed dinners and canceled plans, but we had always found a way to balance it, to prioritize our relationship. Tonight was supposed to be different. A night where we set aside the demands of the world and focused solely on each other. And now that night was slipping away, replaced by a cold, empty space where his presence should have been. I sank down onto the edge of the bed, the weight of disappointment pressing down on me. I stared at the dress hanging on the door, the soft blue silk now a reminder of what wouldn't be. My mind raced, trying to process the sudden shift, to make sense of the emotions swirling within me. There was a part of me that wanted to be angry, to feel betrayed by the timing. But beneath that, I knew Mark hadn't chosen this. It was a necessity, a call he had to answer. Or was it? The question slipped into my mind uninvited. In 10 years of marriage, how many anniversaries, birthdays, and quiet Sunday mornings had been sacrificed to the altar of necessity? How many times had I smiled and said, "I understand," when inside I was screaming? Still, the ache of his absence was real. I imagined him on a plane, far away from the life we had built, missing the chance to share even a few precious hours together. The thought made my chest tighten, and I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. I wanted to reach out to tell him how much I needed him, but the words caught in my throat. I spent the next few minutes sitting quietly, the silence of the room echoing the emptiness I felt inside. The plans I had made seemed suddenly trivial in the face of this unexpected change. I thought about the years Mark and I had spent nurturing our relationship, the compromises and the celebrations, and I realized how fragile it all could be when life intervened. Yet, as the initial shock began to fade, a part of me started to shift. I reminded myself of the man I loved, the man who had stood by me through every challenge and joy. I knew this trip wasn't a rejection of us but a demand of the moment. And so, with a deep breath, I began to gather myself, to find a way to hold on to hope amid the disappointment. But first, I needed to talk to someone who would understand. I called Sarah, my closest friend and the woman who had introduced Mark and me all those years ago. She answered on the second ring, probably expecting to hear about my romantic evening. "How's the Lovebirds' big night going?" she asked cheerfully. "Mark's on a plane to Chicago," I said, and heard her sharp intake of breath. "What?" "Emma, no. Tonight." Sarah listened patiently as I poured out the story, her occasional "oh honey," and "I'm so sorry" providing the comfort I needed. She didn't try to fix anything or offer platitudes about how Mark was just trying to provide for us. She simply let me feel what I was feeling. "You know what I think," she finally said. "I think you should still celebrate. Not the anniversary you planned, but something just for you. You put on that blue dress, you go somewhere beautiful, and you honor the woman who has loved and supported and compromised for 10 years. Her words sparked something in me. Maybe this evening didn't have to be a total loss. Maybe I could reclaim it somehow. Still, the loneliness crept in. I thought about the evening we had planned, the quiet dinner, the shared smiles, and the gentle touch of hands. The absence of Mark's presence loomed large, casting a shadow over the day I had anticipated for so long. I imagined sitting alone at the restaurant, the candlelight flickering against an empty chair, and the thought made my heart ache anew. Despite the pain, I knew I had a choice, to let this moment define the anniversary or to find a way to honor it, even from a distance. I resolved to keep the spirit of the day alive, to celebrate our love in whatever way I could. Perhaps that meant sending a message of love to Mark, or writing down my feelings in a letter he could read when he returned. I wanted him to know that even miles apart my heart was with him, but I also wanted him to know how this felt. Not to punish him, but to help him understand what his choices meant for us. As evening approached, the house felt quieter than usual. I lit a few candles, their soft glow filling the room with warmth I hoped Mark could feel across the miles. I set the table for one, the empty seat a silent testament to the night's unforeseen turn. In that solitude I found a strange comfort, a space to reflect on the resilience of our bond and the promise of reunion. Though the night was not what I had imagined, it became a time to hold on to hope and love, even when circumstances tried to pull us apart. I whispered a prayer for Mark's safe travels and for the strength to navigate this unexpected moment. And as I sat there surrounded by the quiet, I realized that love in its truest form was about more than shared celebrations. It was about standing together, even when apart. The night settled around me like a quiet shroud, and I found myself alone with the hum of the city outside my window. After Mark's call, the carefully woven plans for our anniversary had unraveled, leaving me adrift in a sea of conflicting emotions. I was caught between the desire to understand and the ache of loneliness, wrestling with a storm of feelings that refused to be silenced. I sat on the edge of the bed, the soft blue dress from earlier now folded neatly on the chair beside me, untouched. The room felt heavier somehow, each shadow a reminder of the absence I couldn't escape. Questions swirled in my mind, twisting and turning. How did we get here? Was this the cost of ambition, the price of success? And beneath it all, a deeper question: what did this mean for us? Was I being dramatic? 10 years of marriage, and I was falling apart over one missed dinner? But it wasn't just one dinner, was it? It was the pattern, the slow erosion of us in favor of everything else. Over the years, Mark and I had built our marriage on a foundation of trust and shared sacrifice. We had weathered late nights, missed birthdays, and the endless juggle of work and life. But tonight felt different. This sudden disruption to our plans wasn't just inconvenient. It felt like a fracture in the rhythm we had carefully maintained. The pain wasn't just about missing a dinner. It was about feeling unseen in a moment that mattered so profoundly. Yet, even as frustration bubbled beneath the surface, I knew anger wouldn't serve me. I had spent too many years supporting Mark's career, understanding the demands that came with it. I wanted to be his partner in every sense, to stand beside him through the triumphs and the sacrifices. Still, the loneliness gnawed at me, whispering doubts I fought to silence. I debated whether to confront him, to voice the disappointment that clung to my heart like a shadow. Would telling him how hurt I felt make a difference, or would it only deepen the distance between us? The thought of causing him pain, especially when he was already burdened by obligations, made me hesitate. Maybe silence was kinder, a way to protect the fragile threads of our connection. But silence felt like surrender. I didn't want to bury my feelings beneath a veneer of understanding when inside, I was breaking. The night stretched on and I found myself reaching for a pen and a notebook, the familiar comfort of writing drawing me in. I poured out my heart onto the pages, each word a release, a way to make sense of the turmoil within. "Dear Mark," I wrote, then stopped. What could I say that wouldn't sound like an accusation? How could I express the depth of my disappointment without making him feel guilty for doing what he thought was right? I wrote about the years we had shared, the moments of joy and the trials we had faced together. I wrote about the dreams I held for our anniversary, the longing to celebrate a love that had grown stronger with time. And I wrote about the ache of this unexpected absence, the way it had unsettled the foundation of my hope. "I keep thinking about our first anniversary," I continued. We were so broke we could barely afford dinner at that little Italian place, but you insisted on buying me those earrings. "Because every year with you deserves something beautiful," you said. "I'm wearing them now, alone in our bedroom, and I can't decide if that makes this better or worse." Putting my feelings into words was a balm, a way to hold on to the truth of my experience without judgment or fear. I realized that love wasn't just about perfect moments. It was about embracing the messy, painful ones too. It was about vulnerability and courage, about finding ways to connect even when circumstances pulled us apart. As dawn approached, I made a decision. I would find a way to express my feelings to Mark, not with anger or blame, but with honesty and grace. I wanted him to know that while I supported him, I also needed him to understand the depth of what this sudden change had stirred in me. Love, I believed, was strong enough to hold that truth. But first I would do something for myself. Sarah's words echoed in my mind. Celebrate the woman who had loved and supported and compromised for 10 years. The next day, I set about crafting a gesture that would bridge the distance between us. But I also made a plan for myself. I reached out to a local florist and ordered a bouquet. Not just any flowers, but a carefully chosen arrangement that spoke of my emotions. Each bloom was selected for its meaning. White lilies for purity and devotion, red roses for enduring love, and blue hydrangeas for gratitude and understanding. Alongside the flowers, I included a note, written with the same care and tenderness I had poured into my writing the night before. I chose my words carefully, aiming to convey not just my disappointment, but also my unwavering commitment. I wanted Mark to feel the weight of my heart, to know that even in his absence I was thinking of him, longing for the day we could celebrate together. But I also wrote something else, a truth I'd been afraid to voice. I need you to know that supporting your dreams doesn't mean I have to disappear into them. I need you to see me, Mark. Not just as the woman who understands, but as the woman who deserves to be chosen sometimes too. Arranging the delivery was a quiet act of rebellion against the loneliness that threatened to consume me. It was a way to speak without words, to send a message that was both gentle and powerful. I imagined Mark receiving the bouquet in a hotel room far from home, a small reminder of the love waiting for him across the miles. As I finished the note, a calm settled over me. A fragile peace born from the knowledge that I was choosing my response, shaping this moment in a way that honored both my feelings and our bond. I realized that love wasn't always easy. Sometimes it required creativity and resilience, the courage to express what was hard to say. That evening, as the flowers were on their way to Mark, I sat quietly with a cup of tea, reflecting on the journey that had brought us here. I thought about the years of shared dreams and the challenges we had faced, and I felt a renewed sense of hope. This anniversary, though not as I had imagined, was still an opportunity to grow, to understand, and to deepen the connection that had sustained us. I knew that when Mark returned, we would need to talk. We would need to navigate the delicate balance between his career and our life together. But for now, I held on to the knowledge that my love for him was strong enough to weather this unexpected storm. I was choosing to meet disappointment with grace, to transform hurt into a message of hope and longing. As the night deepened, I wrote in my notebook once more, capturing the emotions of the day, the ache and the hope, the frustration and the love. It was a record of my journey, a testament to the complexities of marriage, and the courage it takes to nurture a bond through life's unpredictable demands. In that quiet space I found strength. I was not alone even in the silence. My heart beat with the promise of reconnection, and I was ready to face the challenges ahead with an open spirit. Love, I realized, was not just about perfect moments but about the willingness to show up, to speak honestly, and to hold each other close even when apart. The day stretched quietly ahead as I awaited news of the flowers I had sent to Mark. Each moment was filled with a strange mixture of hope and vulnerability, the weight of anticipation settling gently over my thoughts. I had chosen the flowers carefully, each bloom carrying a message I hoped would transcend the miles between us and speak directly to his heart. When the florist called to confirm the delivery had been made, a breath I didn't realize I was holding finally escaped. I pictured the bouquet arriving at Mark's hotel room, a vibrant arrangement of white lilies, red roses, and blue hydrangeas, each petal a symbol of the emotions I struggled to express in words. The thought of him receiving this silent message, feeling a touch of home in an unfamiliar place, brought a small bittersweet comfort. But would he understand? Or would he see it as passive-aggressive, another burden to carry while he was trying to focus on work? Along with the flowers, I had sent a note, handwritten with trembling fingers. I had poured my heart into that letter, hoping it would convey not only my disappointment, but also the depth of my love and longing. It was a delicate balance, a silent plea wrapped in warmth, a way to bridge the sudden distance between us without casting blame or igniting hurt. I imagined Mark opening the door, the sight of the bouquet catching his breath, the softness of the petals offering a moment of peace amid the rush of his business trip. I pictured him reading the note slowly, the words unfolding like a tender embrace. I hoped it would remind him of the years we had shared, the love that had grown stronger with every passing day, and the promise that this unexpected absence was only temporary. The symbolism of the flowers was not lost on me. White lilies, markers of purity and devotion, spoke of the unwavering commitment I held for Mark, even in moments of uncertainty. Red roses, the classic emblem of enduring love, whispered the passion and strength that had carried us through a decade together. Blue hydrangeas, with their meaning of gratitude and understanding, were my way of saying thank you for the man who had stood beside me through every challenge. As the hours passed, I found myself returning again and again to the note I had written. Each word was chosen with care, meant to express the complex emotions swirling inside me without overwhelming or accusing. I wanted Mark to know that while I was hurt, my love remained steadfast. I wanted him to feel the weight of my heart, a silent witness to the sacrifices and joys we had shared. That evening I sat quietly in the living room, the soft glow of candlelight filling the space with warmth. The house felt still, the emptiness of Mark's absence softened by the memories that lingered in every corner. I wrapped my hands around a cup of tea and let myself breathe, trusting that my gesture had reached him, that somehow, in the midst of his busy travels, he had felt a flicker of home. But doubt crept in too. What if he was too busy to really notice? What if the flowers sat wilting in his room while he rushed from meeting to meeting? I thought about the power of this silent communication, the way a simple bouquet and a heartfelt note could carry so much meaning. It was a reminder that love didn't always need grand declarations or perfect moments. Sometimes it was found in the quiet acts of reaching out, in the gestures that spoke when words faltered. The flowers were more than just a gift. They were a language of the heart, a bridge over the distance that separated us. I hoped they would soften the edges of the disappointment we both felt, creating a space where understanding could grow. I imagined Mark holding the note close, feeling the depth of my feelings and the hope that this anniversary, though altered, was still a testament to our bond. In the silence of the night, I found solace in the act of giving, a way to turn my pain into something meaningful, a message of love sent across the miles. I realized that while we couldn't control the circumstances that pulled us apart, we could choose how to respond, how to nurture the connection that defined us. As I prepared for the days ahead, I held on to the hope that Mark's reaction to the flowers and note would open a door, a chance for us to reconnect, to share our feelings openly, and to reaffirm the love that had brought us together. I understood that this was only the beginning of a conversation, a step toward healing the unexpected gap that had formed between us. I allowed myself to be vulnerable, to hope that my gesture would speak louder than the distance, that it would remind Mark of the life and love waiting for him back home. And in that hope I found a quiet strength, a belief that love, even when tested, could find a way to endure. The night deepened and I settled into a peaceful stillness, holding on to the promise that this anniversary, though not as we had planned, could become a new chapter in our story. A chapter marked not by absence, but by the courage to reach across the miles and speak the language of the heart. When Mark called later that evening, I felt a flutter of nerves mixed with relief. His voice, familiar yet tinged with exhaustion, came through the phone like a lifeline. But there was something else in his tone, surprise, maybe even shame. Emma. He said my name like a confession. The flowers. They're beautiful. And your note. His voice cracked slightly. I'm sitting here in this sterile hotel room, looking at something so full of life and love, and I feel like the biggest fool. You're not a fool, I said softly, though part of me wondered if that was true. I didn't realize how much I was missing, he continued, his words carrying a weight of regret. Receiving the flowers, it was like a moment of calm in the storm. Your note. It made me see things differently. I could almost picture him sitting alone in a hotel room, the bouquet resting on a nearby table, a tangible connection to home and to me. Mark's reflection opened a door between us that I hadn't known was closed. In his voice, I heard a dawning awareness of the impact his absence had on me, on us. It was a moment of vulnerability, a recognition of the emotional cost that his career demands had imposed on our relationship. This wasn't just a business trip. It was a reminder of the delicate balance we had struggled to maintain. He spoke about the pressure he had been under, the deadlines, the meetings, the constant push to prove himself. But you know what hit me the hardest? He said. When I read your note about how you felt invisible, how you needed to be chosen sometimes too. Emma, I've been so focused on providing for us that I forgot about actually being with us. I never wanted to hurt you, Emma, he said softly. Sometimes I get caught up in everything, and I forget what's most important. You and our life together are my priority, even when it doesn't always seem that way. Hearing him articulate that gave me a fragile hope, that despite the demands pulling us apart, his heart remained firmly tethered to ours. As we talked, I shared my feelings, the loneliness, the disappointment, but also the love that refused to waver. I told him about the struggle to hold on to hope in his absence, about the small acts I had taken to keep the spirit of our anniversary alive. It was an honest conversation, filled with the kind of openness that only comes from deep love and trust. I keep thinking, I said, about all the times I've said I understand when inside I was breaking. I do understand, Mark. I understand that your work is important, that you're trying to build something for us. But I need you to understand that I can't keep being the only one making sacrifices. Mark listened, truly listened, and I could sense his empathy growing with every word. He acknowledged that our relationship required more than just shared history. It needed active care and attention, especially when life's demands threatened to overshadow us. This moment of reflection sparked a shift in his perspective, an understanding that success at work should never come at the expense of the connection we cherished. I've been thinking about my dad, he said suddenly, how he worked himself to death trying to provide for us, but he missed so much. I don't want to be him, Emma. I don't want to wake up one day and realize I was so busy building a life that I forgot to live it. We talked about the delicate dance of balancing career and marriage, the compromises and sacrifices that came with building a life together. Mark expressed his desire to find better ways to support not only his professional goals, but also the emotional needs that sustained our partnership. It was a conversation filled with intention, a commitment to growth and mutual respect. But we also talked about the practical changes we needed to make. No more last-minute business trips on significant dates without discussing it first. Regular check-ins about how we were both feeling. Sacred time that was protected no matter what opportunities arose. I want to finish this deal, Mark said. But I also want to come home and celebrate with you properly. Will you wait for me? The dialogue between us was both healing and hopeful. It reminded me of why we had chosen each other, of the bond that had carried us through a decade of shared experiences. In the quiet honesty of that call, I felt a renewed sense of closeness, as if the miles between us had momentarily shrunk to nothing. Mark's voice carried a promise, not just to make up for the missed anniversary, but to be more present in the days to come. We spoke about planning a special trip when his schedule allowed, a chance to celebrate properly and create new memories that would strengthen our connection. That promise felt like a lifeline, a beacon cutting through the disappointment and uncertainty. When I get back, he said, I'm taking a week off. Just us. No meetings, no phone calls, no emergencies. What do you say? As we ended the call, I felt a gentle warmth settle in my chest. The conversation had bridged the gap between us, transforming absence into understanding and distance into dialogue. It was a reminder that love wasn't just about perfect moments but about the courage to face challenges together, to communicate openly, and to prioritize what truly mattered. In the quiet that followed, I reflected on the journey we had taken. From the initial shock of Mark's unexpected trip to this moment of reconnection. It was a testament to the resilience of our marriage, to the power of empathy and honesty in nurturing a bond that could withstand life's unpredictability. Though the night hadn't unfolded as I had dreamed, it had opened a path toward deeper intimacy and renewed commitment. I knew that the road ahead would require patience and effort, but I was ready to walk it with Mark, hand in hand, as partners who had learned the value of listening and understanding. As I prepared to rest, I held on to the hope that this conversation was a turning point. A moment when we both recognized that love is not just felt but actively cultivated. It was a lesson in balance, in forgiveness, and in the enduring strength of a bond forged through years of shared dreams and challenges. In that quiet space, I felt gratitude for the man who had called me that night, for the honesty we shared, and for the promise of a future where we would continue to grow together. The anniversary might not have been what I had imagined, but it had become a profound reminder of the love that sustained us. A love resilient enough to face the unexpected and hopeful enough to embrace the possibilities ahead. After our heartfelt phone call, Mark and I found ourselves navigating a new terrain of communication, one marked by honesty, vulnerability, and a shared commitment to understanding. The days that followed were filled with quiet conversations and thoughtful reflections, as we both sought ways to bridge the gap that the unexpected business trip had revealed. We began by acknowledging the challenges that had long lingered beneath the surface, the delicate balancing act between professional ambition and the needs of our marriage. Mark opened up about the pressures he faced at work, the relentless pace that often left him drained and disconnected. I shared my feelings of loneliness and the yearning for his presence, especially on days that held special meaning for us. But these weren't just abstract conversations anymore. We got specific. Mark admitted that he'd started checking his phone during our dinner conversations, that he'd been bringing work stress home without realizing it. I confessed that I'd begun making plans with friends on evenings when he worked late, not out of spite, but because waiting for him had become too painful. These conversations were not always easy. There were moments when frustration surfaced, when the weight of competing demands felt overwhelming. One evening, Mark snapped at me when I questioned whether he really needed to take a call during our planned movie night. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under," he said, and I felt that familiar wall rising between us. But this time, instead of retreating into hurt silence, I took a breath and said, "Then help me understand. Talk to me instead of shutting me out." That breakthrough moment changed everything. Beneath the tension, a deeper current of love carried us forward. A recognition that our bond was worth the effort and the difficult talks. Together, we explored practical ways to support each other better. Mark committed to setting clearer boundaries at work when possible, carving out time for us that was free from distractions. He installed an app that blocked work emails after 8 p.m., and he started leaving his phone in the kitchen during dinner. I promised to be more forthcoming about my needs, to voice my feelings before they built into unspoken resentments. This mutual understanding felt like a lifeline, a thread weaving us closer even when life pulled us in different directions. One evening, as we spoke over a video call, Mark surprised me with a plan for a special trip once his schedule eased. He described a quiet cabin retreat where we could escape the noise of everyday life, a place to reconnect and celebrate our love without interruptions. But more than that, he'd already booked it. "I put in for the time off before I even told you about it," he said with a shy smile. I figured it was time to stop talking about making us a priority and actually do it. The idea filled me with warmth and anticipation, a promise that, despite the setbacks, we were looking forward together. Our conversations also touched on the importance of small, everyday gestures. We agreed that love thrived not only in grand celebrations but in the little moments. A shared meal, a note left on the kitchen counter, a text to say, "I'm thinking of you." These acts, we realized, were the threads that held our tapestry of love intact, even when distance or demands threatened to unravel it. We instituted 5-minute check-ins, brief moments each morning and evening where we shared how we were feeling, what we needed, what we were grateful for. It seemed almost silly at first, but those small rituals became anchors in our days. I found myself more attuned to Mark's rhythms, learning to recognize when he needed space and when he craved connection. Mark, in turn, became more mindful of how his absence affected me, making an effort to reach out even during the busiest days. It was a dance of give and take, a delicate choreography that required patience and grace. Throughout this process, we rediscovered the power of listening, not just to each other's words but to the emotions beneath them. We practiced empathy, trying to see the world through each other's eyes, acknowledging that our perspectives were shaped by different experiences yet grounded in the same love. This renewed communication deepened our intimacy in unexpected ways. The vulnerability we shared became a source of strength, a reminder that true connection was forged not in perfection, but in the willingness to be open and authentic. We laughed more freely. Mark started sending me silly memes during his business meetings, and I began leaving ridiculous love notes in his briefcase. We shared dreams with renewed enthusiasm, and found comfort in the knowledge that we were partners facing life's uncertainties together. Our relationship began to shift from one of routine to one of intentionality. We scheduled regular date nights, even if it was just takeout pizza on the living room floor, and protected that time fiercely. These times became sacred, a space where we could lay aside distractions and focus solely on each other. As the weeks passed, I noticed a subtle but profound change in how we related. The tension that had once threatened to pull us apart softened into understanding. We became more forgiving of our imperfections, more patient with the demands that life imposed. Love, I realized, was not a static feeling but a dynamic force that grew through effort and attention. Mark expressed gratitude for the patience and support I had shown, acknowledging that our journey was a shared one. "I used to think that loving you meant working harder to give you everything," he said one evening. "But I'm learning that loving you means being present for everything." I too felt grateful for his willingness to listen, to adapt, and to make our marriage a priority even amidst competing pressures. This mutual appreciation became the foundation for a renewed partnership, one built on respect as much as affection. We also talked openly about the future, envisioning how we could continue to nurture our bond as life evolved. We recognized that challenges would arise. Mark's job wasn't going to suddenly become less demanding, and I wasn't going to stop needing his presence. But with the tools we were developing, communication, empathy, and intentionality, we could face them together. This shared vision gave me a sense of peace and confidence in the resilience of our love. In quiet moments, I reflected on how far we had come, from the disappointment of a missed anniversary to the hopeful journey of rediscovery. It was a testament to the power of connection and the courage it takes to be vulnerable. I felt proud of the way we had turned pain into growth, distance into dialogue, and absence into renewed presence. As I prepared for sleep one night, I felt a gentle warmth in my chest, a quiet reassurance that Mark and I were on a path toward deeper understanding. Our love had been tested, yes, but it had emerged stronger, shaped by the willingness to face challenges head-on and the commitment to cherish each other fully. I knew there would be moments of struggle ahead. The Morrison deal was still ongoing, and there would be other last-minute crises, other tests of our newfound commitment. But I also knew we had built a foundation capable of supporting us through whatever came our way. With each conversation, each shared smile, and each promise kept, we were weaving a story of love that was real, resilient, and ready to embrace the future together. In the quiet aftermath of our renewed conversations, Mark and I found ourselves standing at a crossroads, where the lessons of the past met the promise of the future. The missed anniversary, once a source of pain and disappointment, had become a catalyst for growth, a moment that deepened our connection and reshaped our understanding of what it meant to love and be loved. We looked ahead with a shared sense of hope, knowing that the road wouldn't always be smooth but confident in our ability to navigate it together. The plans for a special trip lingered in our thoughts, a tangible symbol of our commitment to celebrate not just milestones, but the everyday moments that made our life rich and meaningful. But we didn't wait for the trip to start changing. The very next weekend, Mark surprised me by clearing his entire Saturday schedule. "No meetings, no calls, no urgent emails," he announced. "Just us." We spent the day doing gloriously ordinary things. Grocery shopping together, cooking a meal that took 3 hours because we kept getting distracted by conversation, taking a long walk through our neighborhood where we noticed things we'd never seen before. I felt empowered by the journey we had taken. From silence and solitude to dialogue and discovery. Expressing my feelings, even when it was difficult, had opened a door to greater intimacy. Mark's willingness to listen and adapt had shown me the depth of his love and the value he placed on our marriage. Together, we had transformed a moment of absence into an opportunity for presence. Our relationship had become a living testament to resilience, the kind born not of perfection but of perseverance and grace. We had learned that love is not merely a feeling but a choice, a series of decisions to show up, to understand, and to hold each other close through life's unpredictable demands. As days turned into weeks, I found myself carrying this newfound strength into every interaction. I cherished the small rituals we created, morning texts that said, "I'm thinking of you," surprise calls during busy days, and quiet evenings spent reconnecting. These moments wove a tapestry of connection that sustained us, reminding us that love flourishes in both grand gestures and subtle acts. Mark and I talked openly about our dreams and fears, the ambitions that drove us and the vulnerabilities that needed tending. We embraced the complexities of our journey, acknowledging that growth often came through challenge, and that our bond was strengthened by the honesty we nurtured. In this space of openness, I found a deeper appreciation for the man Mark was, the partner who had stood beside me through joys and trials, who had learned and grown alongside me. I felt grateful for the love we shared, a love that was not defined by circumstance but by the courage to weather storms and celebrate triumphs together. The missed anniversary had taught me that love is fluid and evolving, shaped by the choices we make and the respect we show. It was a lesson in patience and forgiveness, in the power of communication and the beauty of shared dreams. I carried these truths with me, ready to face whatever the future held with an open heart. 3 months later, as I sat in the same living room where this journey had begun, I reflected on how much had changed. Mark was upstairs, having just finished a work call, but he'd stuck to his promise: no work after 8 p.m. unless it was truly an emergency. In a few minutes he'd come downstairs with 2 cups of tea, and we'd curl up on the couch to watch a movie or just talk about our days. Tomorrow was our redo anniversary celebration, the trip to the cabin Mark had booked. But tonight felt just as special in its quiet, ordinary way. We had learned that love wasn't just about perfect moments or grand gestures. It was about choosing each other again and again, in all the small and difficult and beautiful moments in between. As I reflected on our journey, I understood that family is not simply about proximity or perfect moments, but about the willingness to embrace imperfections and to love through them. Our story was one of resilience, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment, a story still unfolding with each day. Standing at this place of renewal, I felt a profound sense of peace. The challenges we had faced had not diminished our love. They had refined it, making it more authentic and enduring. I was ready to embrace the complexities of our life together, knowing that love, in its truest form, required courage, patience, and an open heart. With this hope, I looked forward to the days ahead, the anniversaries yet to come, the memories waiting to be made, and the quiet moments that would continue to bind us. I was Emma, a woman shaped by love's trials and triumphs, ready to nurture the bond that defined my life and to cherish the man who stood beside me as we walked forward, together. The soft sound of Mark's footsteps on the stairs made me smile. Some things I thought were worth waiting for, and some loves were strong enough to weather any storm.